Hey, how's it going? Travis here. Just want to walk through our process for organizing our footage. We switch it up a little bit from time to time, but generally this has been the process that I always follow whenever I'm trying to put together the footage from the wedding day. Sometimes this can vary slightly, mattering on which cameras might have been used or what audio sources. For example, we often shoot on all Sony cameras when it's just in-house, but with this wedding we actually had someone coming in the second shoot with us, and they were on Panasonic. So, some of the labeling might be different from time to time, but generally we try to follow the same routine every time, so it's always a consistent workflow when we're importing our footage. So to get started, we have a template folder that we make, and you will see inside here we have 7 folders basically that each do something different. So first off, we have our footage folder. We're going to dive a little bit more into that one, and this is the most important folder because this is where we're going to organize all of our footage. I know everyone has their own workflow style. Some people prefer just to bring everything in linear order. For us, we like to organize our footage so that way we know, say we're looking for an extra shot of the guys getting ready, or we're looking for a reaction shot of something. It's a lot more organized and it's a lot easier to find it as opposed to going through chronological order, especially if you're doing the shooting but you're not doing the editing for your weddings. Sometimes it can be really confusing for the editor to be able to try to find a certain shot because they don't know when you film that shot. So instead of giving them a huge list of notes, we find it easier just to organize our footage in these folders, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. Next up, we have our projects folder. Inside of here, you're going to find pretty much any program we might need to use when it comes to the wedding. So we have After Effects. So if we're doing any motion graphics or animation, we have Encore. So if we're burning any DVDs, we have Pluralize if we need to do any syncing of the footage, which is pretty much a must. We have Premiere, which is kind of the heart of everything because this is where most of the work is getting done, is inside of Premiere. And then we also have Photoshop and Illustrator in case we have any extra files that are kind of coming along with this, some type of graphics or whatever it might be. So inside Premiere, we actually have a project file already made, and we're going to dive into that a little bit later, but we actually have a lot of that already laid out, so that way the sequences are already made. Some of the stuff we need is already in there, just to make the process a little bit more streamlined. Now backing up to our third folder, which will be our audio, which is just as important as footage. So we're going to put all of our audio files in there, which we usually label as well. Next up, we have number 4, which is screens. So we often like to promote our work in some way before we post the wedding, and one of the ways we do this is with screenshots from the wedding day. So we'll often pull some screenshots when the film's almost complete, and we'll use those in our social media. So it's kind of nice just having them all in one folder here. 5 and 6 are kind of the same. Generally, if it's just all digital, we'll just drop it in 5, so that way we don't have to worry about DVDs or anything. But if they are doing a DVD or Blu-ray, we'll usually just put their rendered files inside of 6 as well, which is the DVD and Blu-ray folder. This is also where everything else is going to be in there. So their Encore, any of the template for their DVD menu and other things like that will all go in here. Next up, we have Scratch Disk. That's pretty much for our media cache inside of Premiere. So we like to try to keep the media cache next to the project file, so we'll often put it inside of here as well. So how we would start is we would dive into the footage folder, and you'll see here we already have a bunch of empty folders made for different parts of the days. Now this might vary from day to day. For example, in this template we have right here, we do not have a first look folder, but for example, if we did a wedding where there was a first look, we would just need to add that folder. Sometimes I'll get a little bit more or less detailed, kind of mattering on the wedding day. So with this one, if I do remember right, the prep was a little straightforward. I was just there by myself at the first part of the day doing video. So there was basically one camera I had on monopod for close-up stuff, and then I had a gimbal camera. So I'll maybe make kind of 2 folders, say for the groom prep, and I'll call one, close-up camera, and I'll call the other one gimbal camera, just so that way if I'm looking for groom prep and I'm looking for gimbal shot, I know exactly where it's going to be, and it's not all mixed together into one folder. Just a little trick I have too, I do like trying to kind of keep these in order of the day. So even though it's groom prep, I'll put a B behind it just so it lines up next to the bridal prep, as you'll see here. Now you'll also see a lot of times with groom prep, I'll just kind of merge everything into one folder. There's not a ton that usually happens during the guys prep compared to the girls. Guys, it's super easy. They just kind of throw on their suit and maybe play some pool or whatever it is. Whereas the girls, there's a lot more going on during the day. So we'll have that broke down a little bit more normally, you know, from details, the dress, the makeup, whatever that might be. So then we also have our ceremony cameras, and we usually just kind of label those what they are. So if I just knew for sure kind of what camera was doing what, I'll just call it the camera, but sometimes it's also nice to label it what it is. So for example, if our camera C is our wide shot, then we would just call it wide. If our camera A was focused on the bride, we'll call that bride. And that's pretty much how that works. Next up, we have establishing shots. So we usually have one separate for ceremony establishing, and we'll also have one for reception establishing or room details. Sometimes also even prep has its own establishing, saying it's like a hotel or something like that that's a little bit more unique than the other locations. We'll also have a folder for that as well. And then reception is pretty much broken down like the ceremony. We'll divide it by what cameras, so camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, and then what camera they were or what they were doing. So if they were a wide shot, a gimbal shot, whatever it would be. And then we also have our photo session, and sometimes this gets divided into sections too. So actually this wedding we'll probably be doing this for. We had a regular photo session during the middle of the day, but then we also had an evening photo session after dancing and stuff like that. So we'll probably make a folder for each just to make it easy to figure out, you know, if I'm looking for like a final shot for the film, you know, I'm going to dive into that night shot stuff instead of looking into that one. And I don't have to go through all of the photo session to find the night shots. So let's get started here then. So I'm going to make 2 windows here. A lot of times we do this with 2 monitors because it makes it a lot easier, but just for convenience sake, with recording this, we're going to do it all on one screen. Luckily we got a 4K monitor, so everything is nice and clear and we can see it very easily. Okay, so here we are, and we are going to go through some of this footage here. So let's get started here. We're going to use our A7S II to get started here. And this camera was used during prep, but then it was also kind of like the wide shot during the main stuff for the day. So what we're going to start doing is just going through all this footage and just getting it nice and organized. So since I shot the wedding, I'm pretty familiar with what kind of happened, even though maybe some time has passed, I still kind of remember the order of everything. So some of these clips, if I see one that in the thumbnail looks like a ring, then I'm pretty certain of, you know, the next one is a ring just because I'm familiar with it. You weren't the one that shot the film. You might have to dive in a little bit more to double check what the clip is. And so we'll get started here. So I started with all detail stuff. So if I click on here, you'll see we were doing some of the ring shots. And so I'm going to put all these into the folder that is bridal prep, ring, shoes, etc. And that would be all like our folder for all the detail stuff. And then through here, we didn't actually get any of the bride's makeup, but we did get some of like the bridesmaids and people hanging out and stuff like that. So all this stuff would just go in our bridesmaids mothers folder, which would just be kind of like any footage we have, a B-roll, just people kind of hanging out or whatever. So next we get to the guys. So I'm going to make a folder here that's just close up for groom prep, and then change this one because we didn't do anything with the drone for prep, but we did have the gimbal, so call that one gimbal. And so I'm going to just put all of the guys' stuff kind of in one place. Let me see here where it stops. Let me see here. Okay, so that's more of where the girls start again. So we're going to grab all this, put it right here. And then this is kind of a mix of both. So maybe we'll make a new folder for all of this, and we'll call it prep people, because it's kind of all it is. And then let's see here where this kind of starts. So it's pretty much all of that. So let me see here. For sure it goes to here. And then this kind of looks like ceremony. This is ceremony. Perfect. So this was our wider shot for the ceremony. So this would be kind of like camera C or 3. But we got it labeled here already. So let's just use that one and we'll drag those in there. And we'll make a mental note that this is the wide shot. Okay, and then it looks like there's a lot of detail shots right here. In fact, I think everything up to here is detail. So I'm going to make this a little less confusing because I know we had multiple detail shots. So room details closer. And we'll drag those in there. And then this kind of looks like where the reception might start. And someone's in that shot. That happens a lot with the wide camera. So this is all reception. So we're going to drag this in here and we'll call this wide just so we know which one is which. Next up, we have some other night shot stuff.
Go into that one more time.
And let's see if this is also night shots.
Smiley face.
Yeah, the infamous bokeh smiley face. And then, so we'll bring all that in there. That bokeh might be nice for the night shots too. So let me pull up that here. So photo session, night. And that was the only camera I remember we used for the night stuff. And then I think everything else was open dancing and just people hanging out. So let's make sure, but yep, we got some dessert. They had some foosball set up, so that's in there too. So let's grab all of this and we'll put it in here. And then just so there's no confusion, we'll call it the A7S II camera for dancing. So that's pretty much everything for that camera. So then we'll move on to the next one here. We got the A99 II. And this I know was used for the bride. And then I think it was pretty much our close-up camera during a lot of the reception. Yep, that looks good. So we'll put that here. A99 II. And then this was some cocktail hour. So usually cocktail hour stuff I'll just put in the room details folder. And I'll make a new folder for that one actually. Cocktail. And then looks like we got all photo session stuff here. So we were pretty rushed on this one. So I believe the only gimbal stuff was from the second shooter. So now this I know is cocktail hour. And then this is all photo session. So we're going to drag this in right here. Remove the drone because we didn't do anything of that. And then photo session, closer. And this is all our reception. And this would be our closer shots. So we will grab all of this, put it in here, and then just label that what it is, closer. And now we're on our gimbal camera. So there'll be a lot in here because I know we use this a lot, especially at the beginning of the day, because with me by myself, I was trying to grab all the gimbal shots as well. So it looks like we got some of the dress. So that's just going to go in the dress folder here. And we'll give this a second to catch up. All of this can go right here. And then we just have some details of the place and people. So we won't worry about the establishing shot because it all kind of goes in with one another, but we will do that. And let's bring all of this into this one. And then let's check out these. So that was still at Bridal Prep, I believe. They had a very unique house for their makeup and everything. Let's see here. So that's still the girls. And I think this is where the guys start. Yep. So let's grab all this. We're going to put this in there too. And now we're to the guys. So let's grab all of the guys stuff, which looks like ends right here. And we're going to put it in there. And just a side note, you're going to see these XML files. As far as I know, you do not need those next to them. I'll sometimes grab them just because it's a little bit easier because they're already there. But I don't think you actually need those to still stay next to it. Okay, so this is all the bride and her dress. So we will put this, let's get rid of some of these that we don't need. And we could probably just add it with the dress folder. That should be totally fine. And let's see how far this goes. Okay, so for sure to here. And then it looks like this is where everything else starts. So I'll put these in ceremony establishing. Let's see where it starts. Okay, so there's where our ceremony starts. So we're going to grab everything before then. And put it right there. And then this is all ceremony stuff where I was kind of floating around with the gimbal. And I believe it goes up to here for sure. And I'm going to put it right here. And then we're going to rename this. $6,500, just because we both had gimbals that day. So just want to make sure I know which gimbal shot is which. So that's all reception. So there's nothing really in between then. So let's see here. So that's a dad. So just these two for reception cam. Rename that. And then the rest is just open dancing. So I'll make a new folder. Reception, open, dance, and gimbal A6500. Drag those in there. And that camera is done. On to the next one, we got all the stuff from the second shooter. So then we'll go through the drone here. We only had one clip. There wasn't really a lot of time for the drone stuff, and there wasn't really a lot of room, so we just got some establishing shots with it and also got some of the cocktail hour. So that one's pretty easy, so we'll just make a folder, call it drone, drop that in there, and that one is done. And then last but not least, we have the second shooter's footage. So we got his camera 1, which I'm not 100% sure which one that is. I'm not sure if that's the gimbal or if that's the other camera, so we'll find out here in a second. I think this is all gimbal stuff because this is like establishing shots. It is. All right, perfect. So let's see here. So we'll make this one camera 4, G8, Panasonic, gimbal. Sometimes I mess up the spelling, doesn't really matter too much. And then we also need a ceremony establish gimbal. It looks like this might be some reception stuff here. Yeah, definitely. So room detail gimbal. So that all will go here. And then it looks like he had some of the stuff that I had. So we'll put this in with bridal prep people. More establishing. More people, and this looks like ceremony. It is. And I think this is all ceremony, which is perfect. So we will put all that here in this folder. And then we have some more details. And then we got some cocktail hour. So we'll just put this with the cocktail hour we already have. Let's see, looks like it stops right there. And then we'll make a new folder, photo session, gimbal. And this is probably our reception here. So this is all reception. And then we got all open dancing right there. So I'm gonna actually just put this with the other open dancing gimbal we already have. Kind of similar shots, so it's fine that they're not the same camera. And then we're going to a second camera. I don't think there's a lot on here. I think it was kind of like a backup camera. So this is all ceremony. And typically we only really shoot with 4 cameras. It just was a little bit of a convenience that sometimes we just went and set up his extra camera as a backup because we had it. Normally we're just kind of rocking 4 Sony cameras, kind of 1 on the bride, 1 on the groom, 1 wide shot, and then 1 on the gimbal. And we just need 1 last folder. 5. And we are done. And then we will just organize the audio here. So let's pull that up. So he did a little bit of audio. Let's see what we got here. And so I think this was ceremony. Sounds about right. And this was in the DJ's system too. So we'll move that over there, and then we'll go to the audio that I got. And we have the H1N was on the podium during the ceremony. We had another H1N that the groom had, plus was back up during the reception on the DJ speakers. And then I got the DJ system for the reception. So all that is right here too. And that is everything. So next what we would do is we would go to our projects right here, and then we will go into Premiere and get Premiere opened.